part two of our bowling ball collection segments. This segment's going to cover the polyurethane era, which was really lasted only around 11 years. The first urethane ball came out in 1981, and in 1992, technology changed radically, and so the urethane era lasted really only around 11 years. Rich is going to take over right now and talk about some of the balls we've got right here that are urethane from the three-piece pancake weight block era.
The Black Angle was the first urethane ball to come out. Like Steve said, it came out at the end of 1981. It really revolutionized the game. It not only seemed to give us a little more hooking action than the polyester balls, but it definitely gave us better hitting power. So we had the Black Angle. Steve was able to really find a neat one here. This was the TV angle. Had the little angle on the side so you could see it on TV. Then Brunswick came out with the red edge, so this was the second urethane ball to come out. The gold angle came out then from AMF. This guy was a real dull surface, so this had a lot of hooking action. Then we had the gray angle, which was for harder lane conditions or drier lane conditions, and then the purple angle was just another softer version similar to the gold angle. And then Ebonite did a good job with their urethane balls. We've got the Mag 12 here, which a lot of people don't know. The AMF bowling balls were actually made by Ebonite. So this more or less was Ebonite's version of the gold angle. The Mag 11, Earl Anthony made this one very popular. This actually was a mixture of rubber and urethane. So when Earl was on TV quite a bit, and when you saw the Black Angle, this was the ball that Earl was throwing. The Thunderbolt was another very good ball in the Ebonite line. As we move on down here, the Black Firebolt with the gyro and the dual block, which was actually designed by Carmen Salvino.
A couple of interesting things I want to bring up too. If I'm not mistaken, the Black Angle was the very first bowling ball that was ever $100. I remember when it came out, Pop thought there was no way people will spend $100 for a bowling ball, and you couldn't keep them on the shelf. They went like crazy. I think they were $99.95.
$99.95.
And I have a question for you. You might know the answer to this. I don't. Is the Angle the first family? You know now if a bowling ball takes off, they make tons and tons of varieties, game breakers, right? Zones, cells. I believe the Angle was at the first family where they kept the same name but differentiated and had different colors to do different. I don't think any like polyester balls you had different color white dots.
The Angle was
but they all did the same thing.
The Angle was so popular, and then they came out with different versions.
I think that was the very first ball ever that had a family tree that basically spawned to different cover stocks to help the ball do little different things because the Angle, like I said, was so popular.
Now we go into the mid-'80s for the urethane balls. It took Columbia a couple of years to develop their own urethane formula, but they really hit it big with the wine U-Dot. Then shortly after came the black U-Dot, and it seemed like every week when the pros were on TV, that's all you saw was the black and the wine U-Dot. Then shortly after that, though, Brunswick came in with the Rhino series, and they really did a lot of TV commercials. The Rhino, though, was a very good ball, and that made it on TV quite a bit also. And then we'll move over to these last couple balls that I'll have Steve talk about.
Yeah, a local fella, a friend of my father's, Jerry Malloy, actually a local fella out in Eureka, Missouri, made this ball. That's when urethane was taken off, so he had his own three-piece ball called the Eureka Tank. And this ball here, we only have this one up here because our buddy from Kansas City, Toby Contreras, won his 1983 AC Delco title with the Star Trek Force 3, which was also a pancake weight block urethane ball that gained a little bit of traction in the mid-'80s. Back around 1983 is when the very first two-piece polyurethane ball came out. And it's a ball kind of special here in St. Louis because this ball, the Black Hammer, was actually made if you make a right turn out of our parking lot and drive around 10 miles. The very first Black Hammers were made on the parking lot of a motorcycle shop here in St. Louis. Earl Widman and Johnny Wonders bought Fab Ball Enterprises from John Favinich, and they took his design, his two-piece weight block that we talked about earlier with the plastic fab balls, and they put urethane cover stock around that two-piece design and revolutionized the game of bowling. That's when you started to see off-label drillings. The pin placement started to become important for the first time ever in the history of the sport of bowling. Hammers were ridiculously popular. We couldn't even get them. They were in such demand. Again, we're 10 minutes away from where they were manufactured, so they ended up having to actually sub out, and I believe Utah and Baltimore, they ended up having plants where the fab balls were made across the United States. Locally, it's our opinion that the ones made here were the best. They have the F serial number on them. If you're a collector and you're looking to buy hammers, those tend to have a little more value. They were so picky with their quality control. Anything at all that was slightly off, they wouldn't put it in the box. They'd sell it as a second or pitch it. They were very, very concerned about their quality control. Obviously, the hammer's name is still around today. Made a bunch of different colors. The black was the very first. Blue one was maybe the best of all the hammer line back in the urethane era. In the short oil era, pink hammer, the pearl hammers. I remember Del Ballard winning a bunch of tournaments throwing blue pearls, red pearls. These are very hard to find, very collectible bowling balls. And their nail was also a really popular ball. Two-piece again, two-piece design. Didn't hook a whole lot when the American Bowling Congress decided to go to the short oil patents. This ball right here was actually a ball made by John Fabnich. He's the one that actually developed that weight block that was used in the hammer line. And I believe this might be the first asymmetrical ball that was ever made, or at least one of the very first
the homework
ones.
that we did, that should be the first.
Has a little different weight block than the other hammers.
John Fabnich was definitely on the cutting edge of designing all unique weight blocks.
Right, and then after Hammer and Fab Ball took off with two-piece, what happened? All the other manufacturers jumped in and started.
Exactly. Ebonite jumped in and did a really good job. They basically had their own version of the hammer weight block. They modified it a little bit, but they really did a good job. The Black Turbo came out a little bit before the Nitro, and they really cut into some of the hammer sales because, again, you would see these balls on TV quite a bit. AMF jumped back in with the picture here with the Cobra. They were still successful with the angle, but they felt like they needed a two-piece ball to compete with the hammers. And the Cobra you saw on TV quite a bit, and obviously that's when Pete Weber was making TV show after TV show, and definitely he was throwing this quite a bit. We'll finish up this segment. The AMF Sumo, we're pretty sure that this was also an asymmetrical urethane ball. I did a little bit of homework earlier today. The Black Phantom was an asymmetrical ball out by Brunswick, and again, this goes back to the early 90s. So this is where we're wrapping up our urethane section.
Before we finish, I do want to interject with one last thing. Great marketing idea by the guys, Mr. Wonders and Widman. This was the very first ball that they engraved the name of the ball on the side, so that when you were bowling on TV and you held the ball up, you got to see what they were using. Everybody jumped on board after that. Rich touched on the angle. If you ever go on YouTube and watch old bowling matches, if it's before 1983, you pretty much don't have any idea what the bowler was throwing because the label was in the palm of their hand. They were very smart in marketing this ball. When you picked up a hammer, you saw it on the side of the ball. Really, from a marketing standpoint, it was another revolutionary part of this ball to go up and above the weight block.
And of course, all the other major manufacturers then jumped.
And now they all do it right now, and integrated. It's a very good idea. Yep. All right, so thank you for joining us for our second segment, which was the polyurethane segment. It ended in 1992, I believe. That's when reactive resin came out with the Excalibur, and we'll be moving along to our third and final session here in just a minute. Thanks for joining us.